Hi there, how are you doing today? Namaste, good morning, afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Vishnu Dutt and I work as a network architect in Cisco. So we are here at the session 3 of this learning of SD-WAN, right? So let's discuss first the agenda today. And today's session is not going to be very heavy, right? We will be again discussing some of the terminology of SD-WAN. So although I'm not a great fan of terms, right, when we start learning, when I start learning any solution, okay, but there should be some common language in which you can talk with your customers. And here these terms comes into picture. So you need to learn what vEdge is, what vManage is, or what vSmart is, right? And then basically what transport location is, what is the color, so that you can have some common language to discuss with other members or your customers, which they can also understand, right? So as you know, we have discussed this solution from the perspective of how tunnels are made, how routes are exchanged, right? But we have introduced any name for all these devices. We will be doing that in today's session. The second thing is we want to go deep into a role or a component of this fabric or SD-WAN solution, which is the vBond, right? And why it is so important, why it's so important in SD-WAN. Okay, it's a very simple thing, but we need to understand it because it is one of the most crucial piece of SD-WAN solution. Third thing, we would like to dig a little deeper in our management device, which is vManage, where you can manage all your WAN circuits, all of your WAN infrastructure from a single place, which is vManage, right? We will be looking deeper into that. And if time permits, I will be showing you this vManage or maybe a small demo. Okay. Last, we will be discussing about, can anybody come to my SD-WAN network and join it? Whether there are some security implemented natively in that, right? Suppose I have one SD-WAN device. Can I join the network configured by somebody else with that SD-WAN device? And this is going to be the longer, you can say this is going to be the base for the next couple of sessions, right? So I specifically mentioned security here. So if you are done with this fourth step, right, you will be ready to create your own lab. It's up to you whether you want to create your own lab in Cisco modeling labs or EVNG. But if we are done with this fourth step also, which requires somewhat understanding of some of the security principles, and we will be going through them in next couple of sessions. And those are going to be very, very interesting. I know that there are many folks in this forum who are attending this session are from security team. For them, it may be the brushing up of their concepts, but for other people who are from routing switching background or data center background, this is going to be a new thing for them. And believe me, that is going to be a very, very interesting session, the next next two sessions. So with that, let's start this. And first of all, we will be double clicking on this SD-WAN solution. Okay. So here you go. I believe you are pretty familiar with this board now, right? We discussed some of the things yesterday. To explain once again, we have this data center of organization, which is XYZ, and I am going to implement the SD-WAN solution. Right now, I will be introducing terms also. So this XYZ enterprise has data center in Delhi, branch 1 in Mumbai, and branch 2 in Bangalore. Right, very simple. And I have shown you 3 networks also. X.X.X is connected to BR1. Then Z.Z.Z is connected to DC. And to BR2, basically, we have Y.Y.Y.0. Although I could have taken the example of MPLS here instead of internet. But let's stick to one service provider for now. And we will be discussing MPLS and internet also when we are going to develop the labs or when we go deeper into the solution. But for the simplicity's sake, let's not clutter this board. Let's have only one transport for now, which is internet, right? You are using some ISP at these 3 locations, which is Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore. And this guy has given you 3 IP addresses so that you can connect your branches and data center to internet, right? And as you can notice that these 3 are public IP addresses. So although these doesn't comply with the IP addressing, right? Because nowadays no service provider is going to give you the /24 public range, right? But let's not go into that. Let's assume that we are having 1.1.1.1 on our branch 1, which is facing internet, then 2.2.2. Here, and 3.3.3/24 here, right? And I mentioned yesterday that there is a smart device, right? We have a smart device to which my routers make a connection. Whenever they comes up, these edge devices, you can say the devices, the SD-WAN devices which you have placed in your data center branches will going to make connection to this smart device. Very simple, we have discussed it. But now, name this connection, right? So this is basically a tunnel which is formed over TCP. TCP is a protocol at layer 4. So as you know that, and suppose this guy is also having IP address, say 5.5.5.5, vSmart, right? And it is also connected to internet, so reachability is there. So if this data center device, this one has reachability to 5.5.5, we can surely make a TCP connection, right? To make this connection secure, I will be using a protocol which is known as TLS, and the previous version of TLS is SSL, right? So first we will make a connection. We will make a 3-way handshake, and to secure it, we are going to use TLS. So that's why we call them TLS or DTLS, right? We call these control connections or these tunnel as TLS or DTLS. Why we want to make it secure, the TCP? Because TCP is an unsecure protocol. Nothing is encrypted in that, and that's why this TLS comes into picture. And do not worry about it. How TLS works, we will be explaining them. We will be explaining all those concepts like certificates which are heavily used in TLS and encryption in our next 2 sessions. And those are going to be important if you really want to build your lab from the scratch, right? So we are calling these control connections as TLS or DTLS tunnel. So if you do not know about DTLS, so if I use TCP to make SSL or TLS, if I use TCP and make it secure using TLS, eventually the protocol will be transport layer security. But if I use UDP protocol, which is again a layer 4 protocol, and secure it, then it will become DTLS. Okay. So just for now, just remember this term, that these tunnels can be called with the name control connections, okay, or TLS, DTLS tunnels. Simple. So you just try to assume that whenever your edge devices comes up, And we call all these SD-WAN devices which we place in our organization, whether it's data center, branch, or campus. We call them as edges, right? If it is a viptela router, if it is a viptela SD-WAN device, we call them vEdge, right? If it is Cisco SD-WAN device, we call it CH, right? You can go and look into Cisco's documentation to check what are the various vEdges available and what are the various CHs available. Okay, but the whole point here is that whenever your vEdges comes into picture, when you put your vEdges or CHs or edge devices onto your branches or campus, the first thing they will do is they will try to find the IP address of this smart device and start making connection with it, right? And you would be thinking that, as I mentioned, that you just need to power on this device and it will start making this connection with the smart device. How it will get the IP address of this device to make connection to begin with, right? If you are just switching on this router, it doesn't have anything in it, right? So how it knows that my smart device address is 5.5.5.5, right? So this is exactly where the second component of this solution. We have discussed about vEdges. And by the way, guys, this smart device which we were talking about yesterday is nothing but vSmart. Okay. So now there is third component come into picture. So we have discussed vEdge, we have discussed vSmart. The third thing is vBond. Again, why we use it? So actually, when the system boots, right, it go and query to a particular server, right? So when this vEdge boots from the scratch, SD-WAN developers has coded into it that whenever you boot, just try to make a connection with vbond.viptela.com. I may be wrong with respect to the actual URL for vBond, but let's assume that whenever this device comes up, it will start going and asking vbond.viptela.com that what is the IP address of my smart device, right? So at the first place, it should know that where the vBond is, and it already know because here we have programmed this device in a way that it will go to the vbond.viptela.com and ask for my company's vBond. So this is XYZ company vBond. This is XYZ company vSmart, right? So suppose this guy's IP address is 6.6.6.6, and when you purchase all these devices from Cisco, okay, Cisco makes a repository of it, right? That this vBond device belongs to XYZ organization, and its IP address is going to be 6.6.6.6. Okay, this repository is known by vbond.viptela.com, and you can say this is the vBond of vBond, or basically this guy knows information about other companies also, other enterprises also, right? It can also have a company name, say ABC, whose IP address is say 9.9.9.9 or something else. So it has all that list. Okay, so exactly what happens when this device comes online, this one, You just need to connect it to internet. You just need to plug in the power. It will take IP address on its own. Once it gets the IP address, it will start contacting viptela, vbond.viptela.com. It will go here to this server, which is vbond.viptela.com, and ask, do you have anything for me? Do you have any vBond IP address for me? Right? When it initiates the connection, it specify in this connection that I am from XYZ organization, right? Or this device belongs to XYZ organization. It is there in the request. When the server sees that, okay, I have the entry for XYZ, which is 6.6.6.6, it will reply back to my data center vEdge router that yes, I have an entry for vBond for you, which is 6.6.6.6. Oh, sorry. Yes, which is 6.6.6.6, which is this guy here. I think I am making sense. Whenever this device comes up, it will go to viptela.com, specifically vbond.viptela.com. Once it reaches there, right, it will ask that whether there is any assigned vBond for me. And yes, there is. So it will reply back that yes, your organization's vBond name is 6.6.6.6. Okay. Now, after that, all the interesting things starts happening. So if let's remove all these things now, for now. Let's not make it cluttery. So here we are. So now your data center vEdge device knows where your vBond is. It will go and connect itself, right? And ask a simple question. Do you know if I have any vSmart in my organization? So by the way, guys, this vBond is your responsibility to implement, or Cisco, if you have outsourced it to Cisco, it's Cisco's responsibility to create vSmart and vBond devices. This vBond device talk to vSmart always, right? There should be a connectivity between vSmart and vBond. So vBond knows that what are the various vSmart devices in your organization, right? So it will make this connection. So okay, I will make this connection with some different color, and there is a specific reason for that. So let's choose different color, which is this one, between my data center vEdge to vBond, right? It is again, this tunnel is again TLS, DTLS tunnel, guys, right? So it will make a connection. It will ask that whether you have any smart device which is part of my organization, and this vBond then reply back, yes, you have. And the device IP address is 5.5.5.5, right? Your problem is solved, right? So this device doesn't need to know anything when it comes up. It just needs to go to vbond.viptela.com, which is a server which is having information for all the organizations which have purchased devices from Cisco, SD-WAN devices from Cisco, right? It goes to the server. Server will reply back to your company specific vBond, which is your responsibility. Okay. Now you have vBond IP address. This vEdge is going to connect to vBond to ask what is the address of my vSmart, and they will reply back, and it will reply back with 5.5.5.5, right? So now you can see that I do not need a permanent connection to vBond, because whatever I needed from vBond, I got it, right? As a vEdge, I just needed the IP address of the smart device, the vSmart device. I got it. and now I am ready to make connection with my vSmart, which is the main thing, right? So all these things, whatever we have done, is helping my SD-WAN solution to, it's helping the bring up of my SD-WAN solution, right? And that is why we call this device as Orchestrator, because it is binding multiple things. Am I making any sense? Okay. So this connection is not going to be permanent. This is a transient connection. When DC or your vEdge get the information about the vSmart, it will be just deleting this connection. So there won't be any connection, because whatever the vBond is for, we have taken information out of it, and that is it. Okay, so let me clear this also. So in the meantime, I would take a pause here and ask my panelists that if there is any question till now which I can answer, means one or two questions, if those are very important to answer.
Yes, so just I'll take some questions from the chat. So one, am I audible, right, Vishnu?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So first question is, will vBond always be on cloud?
Will vBond?
Always be on cloud.
No, it is not the case. Actually, you can have on-prem also, but it should always have a public IP address.
Okay, okay. So that means it should be on the internet, right? Because many people have asked the question that all the controllers should have internet.
vBond should be reachable all the times, at least over internet. It should have the public IP address.
Okay, so there is an interesting question from Rahul. Why we need vBond, vSmart, vManage, vEdges? Why Cisco has included these 4 components? What they have achieved by adding 4 components? Could you please guide us?
Yeah, definitely. I have see, you have to be with me on the same page that at least we need these devices, this device and this device for sure, right? This is the vEdge, but I'm just naming them. That is it. vEdge is one component. Then we have vSmart, but I want the solution to be fully automated, right? As I mentioned in my first session, that the deployment should be zero touch. If I need to deploy a new branch, I just need to go there and put my vEdge. But to make everything work, right, you need to have the IP address of vSmart, because this device, when it comes up, it doesn't know anything, right? And you want to make it a scalable solution also for all the organizations which have bought this product from Cisco. Consider, if we do not have this vBond, then how come a device, I am just naming it, and you can name it anything, whatever you want. Cisco solution, name it vBond, because it gives the first thing which is required by this vEdge when it comes up, which is the IP address of the vSmart, right? And we haven't discussed vManage till yet. We will be going to do that. But when we are done with this session, you would be able to understand we need all those things. Otherwise, there is this solution won't work. We have just discussed these routers and this router till yet, nothing else, right? I have just put more one more component, which is vBond this time, which is again very important. What is the function of it? I think you already know. Okay. So we'll taking the remaining questions in next. Let's complete it. Now we are good with respect to vBond also, right? So our solution seems to be complete. That we are able to successfully build this TLS and DTLS connections. Everything is good. Now we start exchanging routes. And to exchange route, we need to have at least one routing protocol, right? So in SD-WAN solution, they have come up with a new protocol, which is OMP, and the full form is Overlay Management Protocol, which is if I compare it with BGP, they're almost same, but it's a kind of a stripped down version of BGP because we do not require almost every feature of BGP in SD-WAN solution, right? So consider it as any other routing protocol, overlay management protocol, which is run over this tunnel, because most of the times you know that if I want to run OSPF, right, it should be connected over direct link, right? And that direct link is now this TLS or DTLS tunnel. And one more advantage is whatever you send over this tunnel cannot be read by anyone on internet because this is encrypted. This tunnel is encrypted and authenticated. How we will be discussing in couple of sessions, coming couple of sessions, right? So here we have another terminology, other term. We are not using any IGPs which we know like RIP, OSPF, or EGP, which is BGP, which we are not using here. We are using a proprietary protocol, overlay management protocol here. Okay, but the overall what routing protocol does, it just take routes and exchange them, right? And this is what we are doing here. So now, as you can see, all these branches and data centers have made connection to vSmart device, and now they will start exchanging routes from each other, right? Sorry, from vSmart, because the peering is only between vEdges and vSmart. If you can see, I do not have any control connection peering between this DC and VR or the branch, because we do not need that, right? If I need the full mesh peering, then we are going to run in the same problem. Here, right now, there are only 3 devices, so the number of peering will be 3. But if we have 100 of branches, then you can presume that the peering will be 100 into 99 divided by 2, which is really means kind of impossible to manage. Although we are doing that in current legacy environment, in legacy environment. So if you consider, if you see that for now, what I'm saying is that every vEdge in your SD-WAN environment is making OMP neighborship, is making OMP connection with vSmart device only, right? So here we see 3 OMP neighborship. And by the way, guys, neighborship is nothing but if you have 2 routers, R1 and R2, if you're running OSPF between them, they become neighbors of each other. That is it. And that's why I'm saying vSmart is neighbor to every vEdge of your SD-WAN environment. Okay. Once these green tunnels comes up, once this TLS, DTLS tunnels comes up, all your edges start sharing routes with vSmart, right? And here you can see that this O doesn't represent OSPF now. This is overlay management protocol. And now I can see that x.x.x.0 is learned via 1.1.1, which is correct. And similarly, Y and Z networks are learned via their respective routers. Okay. Now, this vSmart device, because there is no restriction that what we need to advertise outside. So whatever the routes I learned till now is in this direction, right? So it works just like BGP. It will, whatever it takes from here, it will start advertising back to them, right? And without changing the parameters here. Although it has had the capability to change these parameters, which is the main reason how we can come up with different hub and spoke topologies. But for now, I am presuming a case how SD-WAN works in a default manner. So right now, when these vSmart device get all the routes, it will start advertising them back, right? So this guy has already have z.z.z.0 as its LAN route. It will start receiving routes from vSmart, which will be that it can learn x.x.x via IP address 1.1.1.1 and y.y.y via 2.2.2. Very simple. Similarly here also, that y.y.y.y via 2.2.2 and z.z.z.z via 3.3.3.3. I need to write it down because now I will be creating the actual transport tunnels also. So here x.x.x.0 via 1.1.1 and z.z.z.0/24 via 2.2.2.2. Sorry, 3.3.3.3. This is simple. Now, if you notice that in general, basically if I advertise a route, the next hop is my address on which I am advertising this route. But now, as you can see that this vSmart device doesn't change the next hop, and it just passes the information, whatever it is learning from the other pieces, right? Now, data centers, if data center wants to talk to branch 1, right, it has all the information. Suppose there is a PC here, wants to talk to a PC here. It means that the packet is going to look like this, which is created by this desktop. The source of this packet is going to be z.z.z.z something, and the destination is going to be x.x.x.x. Right? Now the question comes, if this packet comes to this vEdge router, it knows that if it wants to reach the x.x.x, it has to go to 1.1.1. But it doesn't have the direct connection between this data center and branch 1. And yesterday somebody asked me that why do you need a direct connection, right? Because anyhow 1.1.1 is already reachable. So the problem is if I send everything in plain text here, it is the internet and anybody can take my packet, right? Anybody can take my packet, read the content, which I do not want. And this is why I would say security is already inbuilt into the SD-WAN solution. So now this data center knows that if I want to talk to x.x.x.x, I need to create a secure tunnel towards it. Okay, and here is the tunnel for this. We call this tunnel as IPsec tunnel, or some people also call it BFD, which we will be discussing, BFD tunnels, but it is IPsec. It means that whatever your packet is, this one, it will be encapsulated into another packet which you call IPsec, right? But eventually the packet which will be going out of this DC router, so this was your packet, this would be encapsulated in a bigger packet whose source is going to be 3.3.3.3 and destination is going to be 1.1.1, and I have encrypted this packet using IPsec, right? If we do not make this tunnel, I have to send all these packets in plain text, which is not a good practice. Okay, so actually the tunnel which is forming here is IPsec, which is actually forming over GRE. So you can see once we make TLS DTLS connection, we start making IPsec connections, and by default, because this data center router knows all the routes, it will start making this DTLS, sorry, this IPsec connection on its own. And it is the default behavior that all these IPsec tunnel will be formed in full mesh fashion. Okay. So we also call them data tunnel, because actually the data is going inside this tunnel. And when I say inside this tunnel, it doesn't mean much, it doesn't make much sense, but just try to understand that you need to secure the inner packet, and that's why you are securing using IPsec, and you are sending it over these actual packets. So internet will see the normal IP packet, but the contents of this IP packet, the data associated with this IP packet will be encrypted. Okay, we have control connections, we have data plane connections, and this is where basically yesterday's discussion that can we separate control plane with data plane, and yes, we have done that. Your control plane now is this vSmart device, and your data plane resides as a route table, these route tables on your edge device. Right? And yes, IPsec tunnels comes as soon as possible when this vSmart device advertise all the information necessary to make them performing. Right? So this is the default behavior, and if there are 100 sites, 100 such sites, 100 such VHs, there will be 100 into 99 divided by 2 tunnels. IPsec tunnels will be there, right? But yes, you can tweak it. You can tweak it using smart device. And this is how actually SD-WAN policies work, right? So we have understood 3 major components: what VHs are, what vSmart device is, and what is this orchestrator which is binding vSmart device with data center. Okay, but now I need something. I need some UI where I can go and manage all these devices. There is no benefit if I need to configure everything like these devices, these vEdges or these vSmart devices by logging into them, right? There must be something where I can go and done my configuration tasks, where I can go and manage all these devices. Okay, so that something is another device which is kind of a server actually, and we call that as vManage. vManage also has connection with vBond and vSmart device, right? So they all 3 knows what is my vBond, what is my vManage, and what is the smart device. And we need to make this infrastructure. Whether you want to make this infrastructure in Cisco cloud using Cisco's help, or whether you want to make this infrastructure on your own enterprise, it's a design choice, right? Because some of the financial customers always say that I want to make all these devices in my own premises, and that's where they choose the enterprise model, where we install all these devices into the enterprise, right? But Cisco's recommended model is it should be on the cloud. All these devices, vSmart, vBond, vManage should be on the cloud. So what activities I can do from the vManage, right? All the parameters, all the configuration parameters I can define here. And Cisco is basically into the intent-based networking also, right? The meaning of this is you show your intent. This vManage will convert those intent into the configuration command and place them into your respective devices. It is as simple as that. So basically this vManage is a UI. You can access it over HTTPS. It will give you a UI, and you can go and configure a lot of things there. For example, if you need that whatever the new branch which you think that it should be part of my network, you just need to go and place a VH there, right? But you need to define what should be the configuration of this router when it comes up. You need to define that thing in this vManage. So actually how this operation will work, this device comes up, it will ask for vBond about the vManage and vSmart, right? So it will ask for vBond. It will make a connection with vBond. Now it has a it has a IP address of vSmart also. It will start making connection with vSmart. And one more thing, guys, it will also start making connection with vManage. This is again a TLS connection or DTLS connection. And the purpose of this new tunnel is that whatever configuration you have configured for this device, you have for this device here in vManage, should be pushed directly to this device over this tunnel. Okay, I'm not sure how many of you are from programming background, but vManage use netconf to configure all these devices, right? Very simple. So we have just discussed almost everything which we need to understand for the SD-WAN solution, right? What are the data tunnels? What is vManage? What is vBond? Actually, you know about vSmart from the last session. And now we are good to go with basically slightly going deeper into this vBond and all. Okay. So with that, I would like to ask my panelists that if I can take any question which is really important to understand now, which is really important to answer now.
Okay, just let me take the question. So there was a question from Neha. So she asked multiple questions based on some understanding from the vBond. So the first question was, just let me check. Yeah, will we have only one vBond entry for organization with Topologies database?
No, we can have multiple.
Yeah,
because
so
vBond, I do not want to make.
Yeah.
I do not want to make. I do not want to make this as a single point of failure, because it could be the case that 6.6.6.6 can be down. But yes, in the server's database, you can always write that for my organization, these are the vBond, and this data center device can handle all those. If there is a no tunnel, if the vBond 1 is not reachable, I can start making tunnel with other vBond. Okay.
Yeah. So is
yes,
there
you
any
can have
limit for vBond to? Is there any limit to vBond?
For that,
vBond,
basically, I am not sure. We need to consult. We need to consult the Cisco documentation. All these things which are related to the numbers, how many tunnels we can form, are all should be there somewhere in the documentation. But I do not really have the exact numbers for them. Okay.
Okay. The next question is tunnel between vBond and vEdge. Will it be DTLS or DTLS tunnel, or will OMP will run over?
vBond and vEdge. Yes.
Yes.
So it is a TLS tunnel. It is a TLS DTLS tunnel, which is a transient one. Once we are done with the vBond responsibilities or the functionalities, whatever we want to receive from it, it will be deleted.
Okay.
But yes, the tunnel type is TLS DTLS.
Yeah. Okay. There was a question from engineering that I have seen the last vBond connecting shows always up from the vEdge also. As per the understanding, vBond is always DTLS, right?
When we go into the lab, definitely I will show you that whatever you see, basically it's somewhat wrong. Don't worry, we will be seeing that in lab. But believe me, this is going to be a transient connection between vEdge and vBond.
Correct. The next question was from Sagar Padwal. In zero-touch provisioning, who assign IP to edge devices when they boot up for the first time?
I didn't get the question.
Okay. In zero-touch provisioning, who assigns IP to edge devices when they boot up for the first time?
That's what I said, that first you need to connect it to internet, right? At least one connection you need to provide. And you can always configure a static or dynamic IP address. In this case, when you want a zero-touch provisioning, you are going to configure the interface such that it takes IP address from the DSCP, and your service provider is providing you that IP address. Once you are connected to internet, you are good to go to vbond.viptela.com. Okay. Now, because I have some more things to explain, I'll take the questions after this session. Okay. But guys, really good and basically good questions. So actually, if I say this is how your overall solution looks like, we have this in cloud, which could be managed by Cisco, or basically which can be managed by your enterprise. Okay, and everything else like vEdge. Now I have replaced with the actual terms. We have vEdges here. We have vManage, vBond, and vSmart. And I believe we have a good understanding of every component now. Right? Now let's go. How Cisco shows all these in their documentation. So this is I took from the design guide, one of the design guide, which is for public use. So basically, the overall Cisco SD-WAN solution, when you go to Cisco's documentation, will look like this, right? And if you make out this diagram now, if you understand this diagram now, then whatever we are learning from last two sessions is successful, right? And I believe just have a look at this figure. If this makes sense to you now, then basically we are on the right path. Okay, so here, if you see, we have vBond, which is actually the overall orchestrator. They call it orchestrator plane. That is fine. This is the fancy term, right? They call this vManage as management plane, right? Because from the single device, you are doing everything, like the configuration, you can do the analytics, and you can also configure the device from here, right? Now they come up with this third term, which is control plane, which we have already discussed. This is nothing but your vSmarts. All these dotted lines represent tunnels, TLS or DTLS. All these yellow lines represent your data tunnels, right? Which are directly between your, maybe your data center, campus, branch, and home office. And I believe you know, you can easily understand this diagram now. If not, then I would suggest to go with my first session recording, second session recording, and you would be able to understand. Okay, we are not discussing right now about the redundancies here, that how many vSmart, how many vBond can we have in our network. It is just basically your design choice. But I think I forget one thing. People used to use this term a lot, which we called fabric, right? So, and I see people confused with this term a lot when they say SD-WAN fabric. What exactly the meaning of it? Now, as you can see that once I have all the information from vSmart, I can create the direct tunnels between these edges, correct? Actually, and this tunnel is actually formed over this underlay. Underlay is my internet, right? And overlay is all these tunnels. So actually the network which is formed by these tunnels is known as fabric, because we are connecting everything with everything, right? And it's by default setting of SD-WAN. So do not confuse with this word fabric. Fabric means your overlay. The yellow thing is overlay, everything is orange is your underlay. And to have a robust overlay, these connections should be robust. If anything goes down here, of course, you won't be having the overlay because it is built over this underlay, right? So do not get confused with this term. If somebody says SD-WAN fabric, SDA fabric, it is nothing but your overlay. So we are good till this point. Now, the second thing here is the orchestrator, vBond. Why it is so important in SD-WAN? It is important, right, guys? Because if it is not the case, then we could not make this complete solution automated. The beauty of this solution is that it is completely automated. Whenever an edge boots, it will go to viptela.com to fetch the IP address of this vBond. And now this vBond knows where is my vManage, where is my vSmart, and it can eventually tell all this information to VH, and then it will start making its tunnels for further processing, right? So yes, vBond is really, really important for your SD-WAN automated fabric. Okay. So third thing, vManage, a single pane of glass. Is it? Yes, it is a single pane of glass, right? Because here, basically we are doing all the activities like from monitoring our complete WAN. If I'm saying monitoring our complete WAN, it means that I am talking about this vEdges, I'm talking about vBond, vSmart, everything you can monitor from a single place, even all these links also, right? Monitoring all the configuration, templates, policies, everything should be done on vManage. And eventually, because it has connection towards vSmart and vEdges, it will be pushing all those configuration to where it needs to go, right? We haven't discussed templates and policies, but don't be worried about it. Don't worry about it. Because right now, as you can see, I have made a full fabric here, right? A full mesh of these tunnels. But people doesn't want that, right? What if I do not want this tunnel to come up? I just want a hub and spoke topology. This should be hub, this should be spoke. How I can do that? I can do all these things from now a single place, which is vSmart, right? And we do not have UI for vSmart. We have UI for vManage. This vSmart will be added to vManage, and here we will be configuring everything, which will be eventually pushed to vSmart. Right? So suppose I want a hub and spoke topology. I will go to vManage UI. I will say VH1 is my hub, right? And BR1, BR2 my spokes. vManage will generate the necessary commands so that this topology, which was previously a fully meshed topology, will be converting into hub and spoke. It will push all those necessary commands into your vSmart, which is actually advertising those routes. So instead of advertising this VH3 information about VH2 also, it will say that you do not need to go to BR1 directly because your company policy says hub and spoke. And that is where basically it won't advertise this branch to a route of branch 1. And similarly vice versa. So branch 1 doesn't know about branch 2, branch 2 doesn't know about branch 1. They do know only about PCs. And if they do not know about themselves, then they cannot create a IPsec tunnel. So this is going to be a topology, right? The simple concept is that suppose I have these many edges in my network, which are fully connected, right? Everything is fully connected. And this is the default state of SD-WAN. If I want to come up with a custom topology out of it, I can only do that if I at the first place have full mesh connectivity. Correct? If I do not want a communication between this guy and this guy, if I don't want this tunnel, I can remove it using vManage or vSmart. Correct? I can simply make this a hub and spoke or any custom topology which you want, right? But at the first place, you should have the connectivity between everybody to everybody. And then you can create out the custom topology by removing these tunnels. So yes, vManage is a single pane of glass because here you can manage your complete SD-WAN fabric, your complete SD-WAN devices from a single place. You can configure whatever the parameters you want to configure on vManage. It is important. So as you can see, we do not have time for a small demo for this vManage. We will be having this demo maybe tomorrow because I need to explain you something in terms of security also. I would take another 2 to 3 minutes here, and then we will conclude this session. I'll let you know what we are going to cover in next sessions also. So here, can anyone comes with this SD-WAN router and join my fabric? And the answer is no, right? So as I mentioned, that security is inbuilt into your SD-WAN solution. If you have vManage, anybody cannot come with their own vSmart and join this network. Okay? So suppose your complete network is working, right? Everything is able to communicate to everything, and you have necessary policies, whatever you want to have here. But can somebody comes with their own vSmart and join this network? It won't be able to, because your devices, whether it's Edge or any other persona, it will be authenticated first before vManage let them allow to be part of their fabric, to be part of its fabric, right? And how that authentication works. Basically, this is what I'm going to explain you in next couple of sessions, because this is going to be very, very important to understand how to build this vBond, vManage, vSmart from scratch, and how basically they can authenticate themselves, right? For that, you need to understand certificates. If you want to understand certificate, you need to understand public key infrastructure and how it works, right? We will be discussing this in tomorrow's session. If you get hold of these two concepts, right, then basically you can create your own lab within no time. Because I have noticed that there are several of my peers which are slightly which are not aware of this certificate and PKI, and that is where they feel something is not making sense when you bring these controllers up. And believe me, guys, these concepts, certificate or PKI, are really, really simple, and I will explain them with a real life example tomorrow. Okay, so let's wait till tomorrow for this, and we will be going into some security. Once you are done with the upcoming 2 sessions, I will be telling you how to configure your own lab. So if I can take 1 more minute of your, I have created this lab, so do not worry about all these devices. So this is what I want you to be built at your end, whether it's on CML or EVNG. And till now, we are good with respect to understanding of this complete solution, right? Now we will be completing our understanding on security. Once done, then we can define, we can build this Cisco cloud network in CML or EVNG. Okay, so this is as simple as that. So now I am open for any questions, guys. You can type your questions to moderators and raise your hand.
Vishnu, one question from Priyambada. At what stage does vManage come into the picture in the bring up process?
So vManage should be the first one, actually. Although I have explained it at the last, because if you do not have a central authority, if you do not have central UI where you can go and configure all these devices, then basically then there is no point, right? So first you need to bring up vManage. You will be adding vSmart, vBond into it, and then basically we can start the complete process of building this lab or this SD-WAN solution itself. Okay. Any other questions, guys?
Yes. So there was a question from Varun Jalyal. If we have already IPsec tunnels between the branches, Why are we creating new auto site-to-site tunnel fabric using SD-WAN?
I really didn't get that. So, Saurabh, your voice is slightly choppy. Punish, can you, Punish or Rohit, can you tell, can you explain me this question once again, please? Any one of you, the moderators.
Yeah, Vishnu. So the question is, if we manually have IPsec tunnels between branches and DC, why we are creating new auto site-to-site tunnels fabric using SD-WAN?
When I say that we have manual, we need to configure them manually. It is not manual, right? Nothing is manual in this complete solution guide, right? Whatever I have explained, control connections. If they know the vBond, they can create a connection to it and eventually to the vSmart. Similarly, there is no manual connection between V edges, right? Once we have all that routing information, which is shared by vSmart to us, then we can create automatically. Then we can create automatic IPsec tunnels. Okay. Go ahead with other questions, guys. Any other question, Rohit?
So there's a question from Akshit. What exactly detects whether one show use TLS or DTLS tunnel, and which one is more popular one, like TLS or DTLS?
TLS is the more popular one, but generally, if you consider the trade-off between, if you understand difference between TCP and UDP, the same thing is here also, right? Before any SSL connection, there is a TCP three-way handshake in TLS, but in DTLS, it is not the case. We are just making tunnel out of UDP, which is optimal in terms of packet size and using less bandwidth. But again, there are trade-offs, right? I am not a big fan of TCP. I'm not a big fan of UDP, right? But if I need to choose, then basically TCP is way better. And it depends on application also. If you are using your voice application, UDP is better or DTLS is better. But if you are having some other connections, like simple data processing or data transfer, TCP is better. It depends. I cannot say that this one is better or this one is better. Okay. Go ahead, Rohit, for any other question.
Sure, I'm looking for them.
There is one question from Carlos. It's when a new edge device requests access, how vBond decides to what group they belong, knowing the vBond has different groups.
Okay, so if you're talking about a vBond, which is at enterprise level, which is vbond.viptela.com, right? So it decides. So in the initial TLS connection with that vBond, right? vbond.viptela.com, we can transfer information also. We can ask specifically, hey, I am XYZ organization. Has my organization some vBond for me? And that is where basically this complete database comes into picture, which I explained, right? And if there is a vBond for XYZ, it will be giving it back to you, right? So now you have your own company's vBond. Now you are going there, and this vBond knows exactly what is the IP address of my vManage, what is the IP address of my vSmart. It will be giving back to you again. Okay. So let me share the screen also so that I can explain it better there. Okay. So any other questions, guys?
Yes, there's one from Pradeep. He's asking if vBond is on-prem and vSmart are on cloud, and we say the connection must be present between vBond and vSmart. So that is again TLS DTLS tunnel, right? Like one is in.
Yes, that is again the connection. All the control connections, which are also with vBond, is going to be TLS or DTLS. Just consider like this. If we are talking about sending traffic to my other branch, campus, or data center, that is going to be IPsec. Okay, all other tunnels needs to be TLS or DTLS because those are handling the control plane. These yellow one are handling your data plane. That is it.
And thanks, Vishnu. There's one more from Gautam. So would you be showing us the lab creation from scratch so that we can also create our own lab?
Indeed, I will be. So for your information, I have recorded the video from scratch that how you can create this lab in EVNG, right? But even before that, we would like to go step-by-step manner, right? So if you cover the next two sessions where I will be explaining the certificates, which are one of the most important parameters when you bring these controllers in your premises. Once we are done with that, then basically we can create our own lab, and I will be sharing that video also, which is showing you the step-by-step process. That is going to be 1 hour video, and because I have recorded it, I do not need to show it here to you, right? But before that, we need to make at least this vManage up, right? And understanding of certificate is required for that. So just wait for 2 more sessions, guys, and I will be explaining you how we can create this lab from the scratch. Because if we want to learn the new concept like centralized policies, templates, I need to showcase you that on the real devices. Otherwise, there is no point. So yes, the answer is we will be building the lab from scratch.
Okay. And Vishnu, there's one more question from Abhay asking, will we have any OMP for the data traffic, like OMP running over the IPsec?
No, because we do not need that, right? And that's what I explained. So suppose I have these 100 of routers, right? I do not want OMP to run between each and everything, right? And this is where vSmart is playing its smartness. It is saying do not make these tunnels on your own. Just make the tunnel with vSmart. Just make this OMP connection with vSmart, and that is it. You are good to go. Because now this is going to be your control plane. Here you will be having only routing table. That is it, which is guided by this control plane. So you do not need to make a connection between these edges, because we just make this neighborship between edges because we want to share routing information. But that same routing information, if you are getting from vSmart, you do not need to have a direct neighborship between edges, and hence you do not need to learn OMP between edges. Okay? Yeah, go ahead please, if there is any other question.
Vishnu, I think we have pretty much covered. If there are any, probably we can answer it offline. I see we have covered all the questions.
Yeah, so this is great. So, okay. Actually, sorry, I was not sharing. So that is okay. But so with that, thank you so much for attending the session. See you in next one. Bye for now.